and we're pragmatic people, and that's makes you really angry when people cast judgment on you and try and apply their value set, which we call geographic narcissism, and where they're so narcissistic they think you should just adopt their value set, and when they know nothing about what they're talking about, that's what happened. And I think the police is similar to our constituency in the KAP. They've got police officers that just they're trying to do their job. They're trying to, and they're losing. They're losing the battle right now, trying to keep people safe in Queensland. And they need pragmatic answers. They don't want wishy-washy answers of how to fix things. So it's interesting that we sort of land in the same place on that. And again, good on Ian Levers for making those comments.
A week after almost 70% of Australians voted against the voice to Parliament, the police union boss Ian Levers published an opinion piece calling for the Queensland government to abandon what he called Voice 2.0, the path to treaty process with its truth and treaty body, which he said would enshrine a two-tiered justice system where Indigenous offenders would be treated more leniently than anyone else. So, Robbie, looking back on the voice referendum outcome, would it be fair to say that the result is not really a reflection of people's attitudes to the issues faced by First Australian communities, but rather a rebellion by average Australians against identity politics and the woke agenda?
Yeah, I think that's the whole point. From and I'm speaking on behalf of the KAP, and I think we reflect the values of regional Queensland pretty well, in that you could have cut and paste the whole referendum with some other woke agenda item, and you would have got the same result. I think it was everyone living out the southeast or the government outside the governing capitals of Australia just giving a big stuff you to the government and this woke agenda they keep peddling. So that when Ian Levers came out with that, it was a breath of fresh air as far as I'm concerned. Where you're a politician or a political party, and like the KAP that just invests so heavily in pragmatism and practical outcomes, and you keep getting these distracting arguments on these sort of nebulous academic type approaches to everything, and pushed with a strong element of that woke agenda attached to it. It's just drives you insane. And I just know it just makes my blood boil hearing this stuff all the time that we're trying to help, and this is what we've got. And I'll say time and time again, like with um, the first time I'd heard treaty in the state parliament, I was talking to someone in the Greens, and we were just having a good conversation about problems and issues, and I was saying, while that the Aboriginal communities are probably the worst problem, like I could spend all my time just on that in this job. It's best lot, and they said, so it invited in that conversation about how do you fix some of those problems with the First Australians, and the comment Crickets Light came out of the Green and said, well, the first place we've got to start is with the treaty. And it's sort of the first reference I'd heard, I guess, in the state parliament. I'd heard of it before, but I thought, my goodness, that really hit home to me. I thought that is probably the last place I'd start. Like the first place I'd start is with housing, health, land tenure, blue cards, all this stuff. But I guess if you don't know much about it, you're trying to make these decisions, and the Greens are pretty powerful now in Australian politics. Like that's their starting point to fix stuff, and it's just the absolute opposite to regional Queenslanders who are including a lot of Aboriginal people who are pragmatic and want real solutions and something tangible, and they just keep peddling this stuff and talking within their own echo chambers from Canberra and Brisbane, and even in the wash up in the analysis, they're still getting it wrong. This was just a big stuff you, and stop ramming stuff down our throat and talk about real solutions. And Ian Levers, I think, tapped into that sentiment by saying, well, this doesn't help any of these solutions. This just makes everything harder, trying to complicate it with these ethereal type platitudes and giving a different consideration the way that you treat Indigenous through the law. So, good on him for coming out and saying what a lot of people thought.
Yeah, he was immediately called to resign by by some sections of the media, and I think it was the police minister who and the premier as well came out and rejected his comments, some labelling them as racist. I mean, but do you think though that comments like Ian Lever's sort of suggest that the dam is starting to break, that we are seeing a bit of a fight back against the fact that over the last couple of years the public discourse is just totally dominated by woke identity politics? Do you think the dam is starting to break and that we're going to see more and more of this sort of
Yeah,
commentary?
perhaps. I think there is some there is some green shoots sort of coming through um, from our side of the political divide, or political ideologies, I should say. Given that Labor and Liberal both sit on the other side now, where your values driven, and that you can you're just trying to fix things. And it's interesting, isn't it? The KAP has an uncompromising approach to following, being values driven in the way. So we came out very early on the voice and treaty and all those sorts of things, because we know where our value sets lies. We didn't wait for, like the LNP, wait for surveys and the polls to shift to flip flop around. And Labor, who just from the very start, well, I guess they were value driven, but the other side of the political divide. Um, but that we represent people, and we aim to represent all those people. That are pragmatic, and they're no less compassionate than anyone in Canberra or Brisbane, and probably more compassionate when it comes to terms of dealing with these issues. But we're pragmatic people, and that's makes you really angry when people cast judgment on you and try and apply their value set, which we call geographic narcissism, where they're so narcissistic they think you should just adopt their value set, and when they know nothing about what they're talking about. That's what happened. And I think the police is similar to our constituency in the KAP. They've got police officers that they're trying to do their job. They're trying to, and they're losing the battle right now of trying to keep people safe in Queensland. And they need pragmatic answers. They don't want wishy-washy answers of how to fix things. So it's interesting that we sort of land in the same place on that. And again, good on Ian Levers for making those comments.
So let's talk about the LNP a little bit here. You did mention them briefly there. So back in May in Cairns, when the Path to Treaty legislation passed through the regional parliament, we had both LNP and Labor members getting up and providing heartfelt personal testimonies about how firmly they believed in the Path to Treaty. And yet, as soon as the referendum result came out, the LNP flipped and completely reversed their position. I mean, what does it say about them as a party today, you reckon?
Well, I think they're a function of modern government, where they govern by survey polls, Survey Monkey and opinion polls. So they do the focus groups, the opinion polls, and they had a nice big fat opinion poll there with the referendum, and that told them that the votes weren't there. It was better politically for them to switch sides, and good luck to them if that's how you want to operate. But I was sitting in the room in Cairns when I had to listen to Labor trying to tell me they know all about blackfella politics and how to fix blackfellas up in the communities, and half of them, wouldn't have a clue. Most of them wouldn't have a clue what the hell they were talking about. And I had to sit there while the three KAP MPs and the One Nation bloke, Steve Andrews, we all just got pilloried by mainly by the Labor side, and the Liberals sat there quietly and guilty, but still, and they sat there supporting the whole thing, and they all supported it. And then there's just the four of us that end up voting against it and getting the whole room bloody worked up. And certainly Labor were leading the cheer squad, trying to rally the small crowd there at the Queensland Parliament in Cairns. But we sat through that and weathered that because we'd made a call and we'd stand by it. And I yelled straight back at them because I know the hypocrisy that they indulge in when it comes to trying to help blackfellas in these communities who really do need help. And that stirs us up. And all three of us KP fellas in the state, and I know Dad and Federal Parliament, just stirs the hell out of us because we're there actually trying to solve things, and to be, preached to by the other side and then watch LNP tacitly go along with it and then endorse it, put all their public comments and vote with Labor Party on it, and then swap sides after the referendum once they saw that the coast was clear and we'd paved the way for them politically. They saw the coast was clear and that be safe to. So I don't know. People can make their own judgments on what that looks like, but it was pretty disappointing to watch from my point of view.